So, welcome to Big Cab 2020. I tell you, never in my life have I gone through so much to find the perfect way to do a Cabernet tasting. As you know, we normally, the big party event where we get everybody together and everybody brings food. It's a potluck. It's fantastic. We have all these wines. We're all half drunk by the end of it. But that's what it's all about. And, we couldn't do it this year, but I hope this was a good substitute for what we've done before, and we'll do the best that we can do. And I think 2020 is definitely a time where we need to make adjustments, and I think I'm glad to have you all here, and Hank and David are going to be here. They're going to tell you a little bit about these wines tonight, and I think you'll enjoy them. They did a phenomenal presentation. I've already seen it, by the way, before you have. So it was really great. The way we'll work the order sheets are, we gave you the pricing sheet sealed in an envelope. You can look at it, obviously, if you want to, but I always sort of like for you to see the pricing at the end. And that way it gives you, you're not seeing the most expensive wine sometime in the tasting. Say, well, this is the most expensive wine. I mean, we all know what my method is, also to get you a little tipsy, and therefore you order just about anything. But, so anyway, you can do it any way you want to. The sheet is laid out in order of tasting, so you can go from there. All I can say is thank you very much, and if you have any questions, give me a call. We do have to have the orders in by noon or somewhere in that vicinity on Monday, only because I have a lot of wine on reserve from these guys, and they're holding it for me in anticipation of your orders. So let me know, because it won't be there forever. And when it's gone, it's gone. And as you'll find out, 2018 was a fantastic vintage. We have some other ones here, but they're not going to be around for long. They really aren't. So if you like any of them, let me know, and have a good time. See you later.
Well, thank you for coming to Big Cab. This is our 20th year of doing Big Cab at Bon Vivant Market. I think that you'll find that the selections are stellar this year. We're calling it Big Cab, Big Bag, because of the virtual avenue that we are attending tonight. So to my right is David, and I am Hank, and hopefully you'll be seeing us in your homes and enjoying these fine wines with us as we go through the wines this evening.
Hank, I'm hoping they see us digitally and not really in their homes. Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I guess that'll be true.
And thank you guys very much for attending. Everything in 2020 has been unexpected and crazy, and just the fact that we can even do this at all is absolutely wonderful. So I do appreciate you guys tuning in, and forget about this video after after the event, all right? Don't look this back up. We don't need this going on forever and ever. YouTube is forever. You know that, right, Hank?
Yes, that's correct.
The other thought I had was, this could be the beginning of a podcast.
It could be, yes.
You and I reviewing wines.
I'm going to have to change my name to Nick Danger.
Oh, I'm so down. You think of a good name for me, too. Hank, what's our first wine here?
First wine is Stu Miller. This is a wine from Alexander Valley, California. And this is Roger and Carmen Stu Miller, who purchased their land about 150 acres. And their son Fritz is pretty much into the running of the winery from day to day. And so when you look at this wine, we think about Alexander Valley, we're thinking about spice, we're thinking about a wine that has violets, we're thinking about a wine that has beautiful notes of cherry. It's going to have cassis, it's going to have a little bit of cinnamon notes in there. That is really fine. And as you see, this is the first wine that we're doing this evening, so it is going to be a little softer, a little bit lighter, a little bit more supple in style. Their winemaker is Leo Hansen. He's been with them for about 20 years, and he is a fine winemaker. And when you think about Alexander Valley, you have to think about Cyrus Alexander, who was pretty much a pioneer that had 9,000 acres in Alexander Valley at one time. And when he wasn't making wine, he was giving everybody haircuts, believe it or not. He was a barber on the side. So as we look at this wine, swirl it and taste it, you can already see that really pretty notes in there. You can really get the spice of this wine, and that's what makes this wine so really pretty here. Now this wine is 92% Cabernet Sauvignon and 8% Petit Verdot. So it has 2 of the 5 Bordeaux grapes in there. But see how lovely it is? I mean, it's beautiful. It's a perfect wine for a nice filet mignon. I think it would really, really be perfect.
It's got lovely structure, good acidity. I don't know if you guys can see, good body to it, nice legs. And again, I don't know if we actually mentioned or not, but we did put these in order. So this will be our order, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Some of them just for the sake of rotation. Some of them are all, they're all big, they're all cab. So just for the sake of rotation sometimes, but for the most part, this is the order. And so as you guys tune in, we're starting from our right side to their left side, or is it the opposite because we're on camera? Wine number 2. Mike, there's no fourth wall. They know you're here. And Elizabeth, you can respond too. Come on now. Half the fun is interacting with the crowd, and you're my crowd.
It looks beautiful.
A lovely wine. Now, you guys know one of my absolute favorites, David DeSanti. This is brand new from David DeSanti, the first time he's ever produced this. Last year, Big Cab 2019, we had the DeSanti Oakville 2015 or 16, I believe. And we have always loved DeSanti's wines. I personally am a big fan of David DeSanti. I think he's a wonderful character, and I think that his wines are restrained and unique, and this is no exception. So this is the first time he's ever produced this. It is 75% Oakville, 25% Rutherford, and it's actually 75% Cab, 18% Merlot, and 9% Petit Verdot. It is medium body, good fruit, good depth, some hints of almost coconut. Hank and I were talking earlier, and that definitely comes from the oak. And this was 18 months on, I believe, second pass used, so once used oak, mostly French, or I'm sorry, entirely French, mostly used.
So what's with the pine cone?
The pine cone is, it depends on who you talk to, but specifically, okay, so, and it ties into my business. So as we talked about at at Zinfest, I started my own little wine company, Liber LLC. Liber was the lesser known god of wine, right? So we all know Bacchus. Liber was basically interchangeable, and he had a thyrsus, and that was a staff with a pine cone and a ribbon on it. So the pine cone represents, in this case, liberty, right? Liber, liberty, partying, wine, right? So this is hand-drawn by David DeSanti himself. So that's kind of my take on it. I don't actually know. I haven't heard from him that it ties into Liber, but, I'm just assuming. So it is hand-drawn by David DeSanti, the Proof Vineyard. So he has the Proof, which we've definitely talked about in the past. It's this wonderful time capsule of a vineyard located in Napa. And they have all sorts of incredible old vines there that he makes the Proof White, Proof Red, and Proof Petit Syrah, which are incredibly limited. And speaking of limited, this was only 10 barrels, so 250 cases made, and the first time he's ever released it. So I hope you guys do enjoy. Medium body, good fruit, well-balanced acidity, and
What
just
do you
that.
think, Hank? Do you like it?
I do like it. I think the black cherry really comes out right out of the glass. It has a little bit of cinnamon notes also. But there again, this wine is a little bit on the softer side. It's a little bit lighter. Hence, it's the second wine that we're doing this today. So it really just shows very, very well.
It's creamy's not the right word, but it has such soft tannin and supple structure that it just goes down so smooth. So a good bit of juice to it, no bite, not too much acidity, good depth, wonderful color. I don't know how it's coming through on the camera here, but just this crimson garnet sort of deep dark ruby red, and it's quaffable for how big it is. At where are we at? 15%? No, 14. Yeah, 14.5. So big and juicy and easy drinking, and very, very, very well rounded. And again, I'm a big fan of David DeSanti. Very limited, first time in the state. So something new for you guys, something new for Big Cab 2020. And I hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Ahi tuna seared would be wonderful with this wine. Also, there again, a good fillet.
Agreed. Both. Agreed. Absolutely.
Moving on to the third wine of the lineup, and this is pretty much a wine that's been a favorite of mine for over 20 years, probably even a little bit longer. But this is the Chapelet Signature Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. And this is Don and Molly Chapelet. And he was pretty much an international vending coffee machine guy and made a ton of money, retired young, and he hooked up with all people Andrei Technishev, who was one of the great gurus of the early Napa Valley days. And he showed him a site on Pritchard Hill, which is where their 300 plus acre ranch is. And he decided to go ahead and purchase this property and grow grapes. And so they did a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, and they also did a little Chenin Blanc on the property in Cabernet. And Don Chapelet loved Bordeaux. So that was what he was drinking when he was in his coffee business. And he wanted to produce a wine that really had all the attributes of a really good Bordeaux. So you've got to think about, this is 1967. And Pritchard Hill was pretty much not much happening there. It was no vineyards up in Pritchard Hill. And now it is like one of the holy grails of Napa Valley. So Pritchard Hill is very, very, very well sought after. And also the wine is spectacular. And you're going to see a wine that has, it's lush. It has beautiful notes in there. It's got all that cassis black cherry. It's going to have some blackberry notes in there also. The soil composition has got some gravel. It's got some alluvial. It's the right sun exposure. And they have just done it so well. And it's just amazing. Also, too, believe it or not, the winemaker has been there for quite a while. And they've gone through a lot of great winemakers over the years, and today it is I can't think of his name right now, but his last name is Titus anyway. And I'll think of his first as Philip Corleo Titus. And so he has started it. He started with him in 1981, and he left because he kind of wanted to be at other places and do some things, and he found out that yeah, you could be a consultant with a lot of wineries in Napa Valley, but all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're like juggling all these balls in the air. Came back to Chapelet, and he's been there for over 30 years. And he has kind of set the style, of course, and he does a remarkable job. Always a great wine. They also do a Pritchard Hill bottling that is wonderful too, but this is their flagship wine, and it is really beautiful. So. Great. Hopefully, if y'all are on your third wine now, maybe not, but if you are, enjoy this wine.
Should be.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
By the way,
they might be slower.
No. I mean, you should pause, enjoy, right? I mean, this is something that they can do. This is the first time we're ever doing this, right? So you don't have to do it when we do Big Cab, right? You don't have to tune in at any time. You can come back whenever you want. You can sip, you can enjoy, you can pause. I hope you guys cook yourselves a nice meal. You know, really enjoy it, okay? Yeah. We've earned it after 2020 so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I know.
Delicious wine.
Yep. Real quick, before we do get on to number 4, I just wanted to touch on Pritchard Hill so people do know. Who else comes from Pritchard Hill that we know? I know...
Tim and Dottie?
Yeah. And who else? We got some big dogs out there, don't we?
Who else?
Is Screaming Eagle out in Pritchard?
No. They're not.
Is it Donna? Donna Estates, I believe, has some property out there. Continuum.
Continual. That's Tim. That's Tim Madavi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's really funny because thinking about Tim Madavi and Continuum, back in the early days, their first vintage was 67. 68, they made their wine at Mondavi because Robert Mondavi opened his arms to Don and Molly Chapelet. And so they kind of went full circle. And they have really let, I guess, Tim Mondavi also has some vineyards there, but they also, I guess, sell them grapes also.
Yep.
So
And I know
kind of a nice thing.
I know David Arthur. I'm not sure if we've ever really talked about him before in the past, but David Arthur's father in 1958 or 59 or so bought about 900 acres out there, and you can imagine the price difference from today to then. And there are just some incredible wines out there that honestly do sell for 10 times the price of what we're talking about. So it's a wonderful piece of property and some wonderful wines coming out of there. And now we're about to shift gears.
So we're moving on to the fourth wine. And the fourth wine is actually from Simonsburg, from Stellenbosch, South Africa. So Ramahute. And this is a wine that we have never done in a big cab before. And it's the first South African Cabernet that we've done that we felt it really showed its honors. And we go ahead and decided to put it into the lineup. And this wine is a beautiful Cabernet. Now, this wine is going to be structurally a little bit more tannic in style. It's showing all the grip and everything that South Africa has to offer. It is really amazing because in 2001 to 2008, Michel Roland was like a partner in this winery, and so he kind of set the style and helped them do what they wanted to do with their Cabernet, and it's just amazing. It's the right sun exposure, it's the right soil type, it's the right incline, and it is a worthy wine that just drinks really well. And this wine is going to open up in the glass. It's going to lay down for quite a while in the bottle.
So is it 100% Cabernet?
I am thinking that it's not.
It does not say on the label whether it is or isn't.
Yeah.
But 24 months in barrique, I mean, that gives it a lot of that grip, that tannin, that structure that we're getting out of it. And the one thing that I noted when we were putting these in order to Hank, South Africa has this unique note to it that some people look for, and some people go, oh, what is that? But you get this kind of smokiness, this almost kind of depth to it, and yeah, a little bit gamey for sure, but you get this smoky depth, and then it's followed up with this grip, this wonderful red fruit, a little bit of spice to it, good structure, good acidity all around. I'm very impressed. It's my first time having this wine. I have in the past always enjoyed South African wines, and I've never had anything like this, so it's very, very cool.
In order, we Corvanned them, but now that these wines have had a little bit of time in the glass, this wine is just like really jumping out. I mean, it is remarkable.
Agreed.
One of their claim to fames, they do a red blend, and it was a guy that they have on the label, Thomas Colin Miller, whatever his name is. Can't say it too much, but he found a 3,000 carat diamond. 3,000 carat diamond.
Well, where?
In South Africa, in the South African
I
mines.
thought you were going to say in the vineyard or something.
No,
I was
no.
like, wait, what?
No, in the mines he found, and I mean,
Wow.
Thomas
Why did he retire?
Cullen and
Is that what he used to start the winery?
It wasn't him, but I mean, that was back in earlier times before the owners that have this winery. But he gave this diamond to the Crown, and they have cut it. I don't know how many times, but I know they've cut it twice, and it's in the Crown Jewels in England. So it's in the part of their Crown Jewels. It's like the big African star and the second African star. So that's kind of how things kind of tie in together. And when you're thinking about Ramahute, what does it mean? It means braking drive.
Do we know this for sure?
Yes, we do.
All right. Like I said, I've never had this wine before. I don't know. I can't even pronounce it, so I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just curious. It is honestly a lovely wine. I don't know if you noticed, I finished more of this than anyone else. So very, very cool wine.
But notice how this wine's really jumped out. I mean,
it has.
And we put it in the right order. I think it's really right where it needs to be.
You know, somebody's got to do the hard work, guys. So
It's tough.
I know. I mean, we were here for an hour before we even turned the cameras on, just going back and forth. And God, the hard work. Man. But hey, we're here for you, the people. And that's what we're trying to do. So, we ready to move on?
Yes, we are.
I hope you're ready to move on. We're getting on to one of my personal favorites. I know, I said that about DeSanti. David DeSanti is one of my personal favorites, but so is Lupe Maldonado. Lupe Maldonado, you guys have definitely heard me talk about him in the past. And this is, and Hank, I think, does agree, the 2017 is the best vintage I have ever had from Maldonado. That being said, I don't have a super, I don't have all the depth of Maldonado, but I've had probably the 13 and on. And it's light years beyond what I've had from him in the past. And so if you thought I loved him before, we're on to a new level here. So, Maldonado, quickly, part of the reason I love his wines, besides they're absolutely delicious, right? They have depth, they have structure, they have acidity. There's such a wonderful story there, and it is the American dream, right? So, Lupe Maldonado emigrated from Mexico to California in 1962. He started as basically a farmhand, and he was working at Sterling Vineyards, and he worked his way up. And John Newton sold Sterling Vineyards, and he started Newton Vineyards, okay? Lupe worked there for 30 plus years, and while he was working his way up, he ended up eventually becoming vineyard manager of Newton Cellars. And Newton, in the late 90s, early mid 90s, had a bunch of high 90 point, possibly even 100 point wines. Don't quote me on that. I love Newton, but I love Maldonado, right? So I don't know all the details, but basically what we're trying to say is made a name for himself. Sent his son, Hugo, to school, UC Davis, for enology, one of the best programs in the world. And when Hugo graduated, he took over as vineyard manager for Newton. So when he took over, Lupe went and bought a 12-acre site in Calistoga, right? So we're living the American dream, right? You come here, you work hard, you make a name for yourself, you're able to pass something on to your son is succeeding. He goes off and he buys his own plot of land, which used to be at one point a vineyard. Now, 12 acres in Calistoga, it's the northernmost point of Napa Valley. Maybe not the northernmost, but farther north than pretty much anything else we have here. And the father and son work together to make this into something, okay? So eventually Hugo retires from Newton, and they dive in together, father and son, into Maldonado Vineyards. 12 acres, already existing winery, half acre of Cabernet planted on hillside, but what they're really doing is they have a vineyard site in Calistoga, and they have a vineyard that they constantly have kind of like an evergreen contract in the Jameson Valley, which I had never really heard of before, but it's just as cool as Calistoga. So you get this kind of cool climate California Cabernet, which is unusual. You typically either have mountainside, right? A lot of sun exposure, not very much water, and you get these big, tight structured Cabernets that can age forever. And then you have the valley floor, which is big and juicy, and it's meant to be a short shelf life, okay? There's nothing wrong with those. They're big and juicy, and they're a lot of fun. But this is somewhere in between. You have this cooler climate that is able to provide a little bit of structure and uniqueness to it. And so the father and son, they start this property in Calistoga. They're sourcing vineyards from all over Napa Valley, and they want to produce something that they can put their name on and be proud of. So they don't make a whole bunch of anything. I think this was only a couple hundred cases. And the one thing that I actually read today, which I did not know, was that Lupe and Hugo together decided that they were going to drill their caves, because they got a bunch of quotes from people and they said, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not paying for that. I've been working in the vineyards 40 years. I can do it myself. And it took them 2 years. They hit bedrock, and it took them a year to get through 2 feet of bedrock. Okay? But they did it. They worked together, father and son. They put their name on it, and they're proud of it. And I'm proud to represent them. I love the story. I love the wine. It's got a lot of depth. It's got some good juice to it. Lovely color, lovely structure, wonderful acidity. To me, it's very well rounded. It's youthful still at 2017, but like I'm saying, in my opinion, this is the best vintage it's ever been from them. What do you think, Hank?
I agree. I tell you, we've had earlier vintages, and they were good, but they were a little bit too tannic. I think the fruit structure of this wine is just beautiful. It's just ingrained in there. We're kind of going in from filet and now into New York strip territory.
Yeah.
So when you think about this wine, think about like a nice New York strip to eat. And
Oh yeah.
it's just it's amazing wine, and it just it's beautiful. It's gonna age over the next 10 years. It's gonna be delightful. It's
Yep.
just opening up in the glass now, just wonderful. And you still get all that beautiful blackberry, black cherry. You get the cassis in there. You get a little violet note.
Yeah, everything is in check. It just very well rounded. A little bit of grip, a little bit of acidity, good structure, good depth to it. I mean, to me, this is what I want to drink. This is what I like to drink. Okay, I mean, I love Silencio, I love DeSanti, I love all these wines. I do. But if you're asking Dave what he's drinking at home with the steak, it's right here.
Very good.
And now we come on to a classic, Vengi Silencio. We've talked about Silencio numerous times. This year is special. Now, Kirk himself has proclaimed that in his 44th year of life, and all of the years he's spent in the vineyards, that he has very rarely ever proclaimed a vintage great. And what does it take to make a great vintage? Okay, consistency, wonderful crop, not producing too much, not producing too little, not too watery, not too hot, not too cold. A lot of people will think about great vintages. Hank and I were discussing earlier. I said some of my favorites when I think of great vintages are 13, 14, 2010. We talked about 05, right? We talked about all these vintages. None of them were in Kirk's list. Okay, he said like 97, right? 02. 2007, 2012, and now he proclaims 2018 as a great vintage. So consistency is key. In the past, they have sourced from between 5 to 7 vineyard sites that Kirk is currently working with. So we're all familiar with the Bon Ash, right? We're all familiar with the Family Reserve. Some of us may be familiar with the Signal Fire and the Osso and all of these other wines that he makes that are 2 or 3 times the price. Okay? And basically what it looks to me is that this year, because of the plethora of good grapes, right? It's not just having abundance, right? We have abundance, but it doesn't always mean we want to use it all. So this year, he sourced from 11 different vineyard sites. So it's the first time I've ever seen anything like it. I'm not gonna try and quote them all to you, but we can send you out a text sheet or we can send you a link to look it up online. But it is absolutely lovely. I think it's a little bit bigger than Maldonado in terms of juice, not necessarily in terms of structure, but just very well rounded. And I don't want to say the best I've ever had, because I feel like I'm repeating myself. I'll let you be the judge. But what I'm saying is it's as good as ever. And if Kirk Vengi claims it to be a great vintage, that should say something to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, what makes a great vintage? I mean, when you think about it, like in the last 4 years, we've had 16 was a really great vintage in California, Napa Valley, Sonoma Valley, great vintage. 17 we had fires, and that kind of threw things off kilter. Then 18 came through, and 18 was just a breath of fresh air because everything was just on point. I mean, it was not too cold, it wasn't too hot, it was just enough rain, just enough sunshine. I mean, everything went at a really good pace. and that's where the grapes developed on the vine. They picked at the right time, and they made a great wine. And so when you read about 2018, they're going to say the same thing. It's going to be one of the vintages of the last 6 years. I mean, it's going to be right up there. So, and pretty much everybody made a 2018. I don't know how much they made, but they made it. Now, think about 2019. Fires are there again. There again, 2020. Fires there again, and not only in California, but in Oregon and Washington State. So, I mean, 18 is going to be the stellar vintage now for the next kind of 3 years coming through.
Easy.
So for all y'all people out there that have a little bit of wine in your cellars, you need to restock. Think about 18, think about 16, and of course we have some 17s here that you can see they're drinking wonderful. And you're going to have to do that because I think things might get short in that period of time because some places are not going to make wine.
Yep.
You know, so they're going to have to just, tighten their belt and suck it up and not do it, which is a shame. And it's a shame that they have to do that. But this wine is beautiful. And like I've had Silencio for the last, how many, 5 years or 6 years?
Yeah, at least.
I was introduced to it. And my buddy Bill Bell Duke, he loves Bon Ash. And he kind of gives it away sometimes, but we're going to kind of curb him of that particular thing. But so, Bill, if you're watching this vintage video, think about Silencio as a house wine, as your house wine, because we just live down the street.
And Bill, if you are watching, we don't have any Bon Ash right now, but we did just get more Family Reserve. We have about 15 3-packs. I know, but the Family Reserve, the Family Reserve is wonderful. It's just a little bit more structured than Bon Ash, but absolutely wonderful wines. And I on vintage notes, real quick, I would like to just touch on when I first started working with Joe, who is Joe Bello, is the our local rep for Vengi Vineyards. He had been selling Vengi forever. He's a chef. He's been in the industry. I believe he's a level 3 sommelier. Joe told me, and you always, right, so if it's coming from the person who represents it, you kind of have to, he says 17 is the best vintage I've ever had. And then he said, but you should wait and see what the 18 is. And I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, we're all selling it. We all love it. We all know it. But at the end of the day, and then he was like 18, and I'm like, dude, Joe, if you ever see this, I agree. And a little note that we touched on earlier, now that we've Coravined and poured, it is opening up wonderfully. And it is fantastic. And I hope you guys enjoy.
All right.
Okay, moving on. And we have to thank Niles Vingay for having a son that is as talented as Kurt is, because let me tell you, it's pretty remarkable, all the wines he does. He does like 27 different kind of consulting jobs, and I don't know how he does it personally. So we're moving on to actually going to Sonoma. We're going to Dry Creek, and we're going to be tasting the Dry Creek Winery Mariner. Now, this wine is a wine that David S. Starr was the first new winery, started in 1972 in Sonoma, in Dry Creek. And then in 1966, Robert Mondavi started his winery, the first new winery in Napa Valley. Those guys knew each other. They got along. They kind of were championing the same kind of grapes in a way. David Starr was doing like Chenin Blanc and a little Sauvignon Blanc to start with. And they both kind of decided to call their wine Fumé Blanc. Mm-hmm. And so for a long time, white wines were the forte at Dry Creek. And then all of a sudden he planted some, the red grapes, the Cabernet, the Merlot, Petit Verdot, the Malbec, Cab Franc. So what we're tasting now is a blend of all 5 of the Bordeaux grapes. And it is, notice it's in the lineup a little bit towards the end. So it is a little bit bigger wine. It has a little bit more grip to it. Oh, yeah. This wine really could use a decanting, I think, or maybe a twice decanting. I mean, so think about that. Taste it first. You might want to decant it. But I think it's I can't wait to taste it out of this glass. So it's kind of, I'm just
it's-
swirling it around and kind of working it really
Work it,
good.
baby, work it.
We had discussion about glasses earlier, and if you notice the difference here, first wine, obviously, it's on the lighter side of things, but this one is big and grippy and chewy, and it has this tannin structure. and it's wonderful.
Yes.
But
yes.
out of this glass, with a little bit of air, it's showing it's like a completely different animal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so for y'all at home, hopefully you're drinking out of a glass that is kind of this size, or if this is not big enough for you, we have to kind of work your way into this size glass
Now, you could fit a whole bottle in that, right?
or this size glass. So you can do either one, but what these do is they kind of aerate, and they also will just decant in the glass, and that's what makes it so fun, because you're only going to fill up to about that much, or sounds good, that much, and that's it. But what this does is it really opens up the wine. It really makes them taste so much better, and it is a lot of fun to drink out of a big glass. So
Yep.
if you don't have them at home, go see Mike Adams at Bon Vivant Market, and he can set you up.
Last but not least,
Last but not least, I'm still chewing on this boy
Oh,
here.
me too. Because listen, this has been this wine was a little bit. This wine started out at different places
Yeah.
earlier,
Yes.
and we kind of figured out where it needed to be.
I will admit, right, when we first started, I looked and I said Dry Creek looks like a bit of a blend. I placed it at number 2. And so when we Coravined, we tried, and I basically did a little bit of a Jacob's Ladder. Okay, this one's here. Okay, this one's here. And then we rotate, right? So we kept a little bit of this in the glass and then added some of this to a different glass and said, okay, this one goes here. And then it kept climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing until it ended up all the way almost at the end.
And it's actually in the right spot now.
I agree.
It really
I
is.
agree.
It really is, and you can see how after tasting it now.
Oh, it's wonderful.
And it's just like yes,
Absolutely.
And so there
work
again,
it, Hank, work it.
I am working.
Work it, baby.
Brain to elbow.
Yep, bring the elbow, work it.
And, you know, I always love to take this opportunity when we talk about a California or American Bordeaux blend. What do we call it?
Meritage.
A meritage, right? It's not a meritage, right? Because people always ask, what is your heritage? They don't ask, what is your heritage? Well, my heritage comes from Southern Virginia. No, it's a meritage, and it is absolutely wonderful. It is everything that you would want out of a meritage. I believe, what is it, 70% or so of Cabernet? I mean,
This is actually 69% Cab. It is 15% Merlot, 6% Cab Franc, 5% Malbec, and 5% Petit Verdot. So it has all 5 of the Bordeaux grapes,
very cool.
and I think
Perfect.
they do
Yeah.
a great job with this wine.
Yeah, I'm overly pleased and pleasantly surprised by this wine. I really am. I've never had it before. I do like Dry Creek wines, but most of the wines I've had from Dry Creek have been Zinfandels. So,
And they do a lot of Zins. They
Yeah.
do probably maybe 6 different Zinfandels, and so
from them
yes.
specifically. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Dry Creek, yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I hope you guys are enjoying it at home. We are about to dive into the last wine, which is also new.
You show them the label.
Of the last wine?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's a very interesting label.
It really is. So, it's called Caterwaul. So, Caterwaul. Honestly, not sure if that has a secondary meaning, but that looks like a little bit of a bobcat on here. So, this wine is unique in the sense that it is one of those projects between friends. These guys have met. These guys, I should tell you who these guys are, right? So, Matt Harden, sixth generation. I don't know where I got third or fourth. 6th generation Napa Valley farmer. Okay, so he's grown up in the farms growing the grapes, and he is buddies with, or met at some point, Thomas Rivers Brown. Now, Thomas Rivers Brown does a lot of wines that you may have heard of, such as Schrader, such as Outpost, Rivers Marie, Rivanna Vineyards, Stretch Drive. I could probably keep going, but I'm not trying to prove a point here. The point about Thomas Rivers Brown, number one, he's a Southern boy. I believe he's from he's from Carolina. I'm not going to specify which one. He's a Carolina boy, and he went to UVA, and he has more 100-point wines than anybody else ever. I think that he's nearing 30 right now. Last time I looked, it was at like 26 or 27. So more 100-point wines than anybody else ever, period. Not just California, not just, I mean, period, okay? This is a project amongst friends where they basically said, how can we together make a Cabernet that is reasonably affordable, that delivers, that etc., right? So they're sourcing from vineyards that they basically already work with and that Matt is already growing for. And this was something that you could have made a bottle that retails for $150, but only made a couple barrels of it. And they said, you know what, that's not really what we're going for. We want something approachable, but with depth and you know, juice and something that everybody can get access to. So they sourced from multiple vineyards, not just Matt's, all throughout Napa Valley. So it is Napa Valley sourced Cabernet Sauvignon, and it is 100 barrels, so 2,500 cases, right?
Yeah.
So 100 barrels, and like I said, some of it is the $150 stuff, some of it is the $40 stuff, but they blended it. They did a wonderful job. Thomas Rivers Brown is a very, very talented winemaker.
I'm a fan.
He provides depth, balance, structure, the all around. And as you can see, it's at the end, right? So 2018, it's youthful. It should have aging potential for 10, 15 years.
Oh, easy.
Easy.
And if y'all buy some of this wine, remember to think about us like a couple years down the road when it's in your cellar, because
Agreed.
I would love to taste this wine.
Agreed.
Maybe 5 years from now.
Yeah, so this was a project, by the way, I forgot to mention, that they were working on for years before they ever produced anything. I believe they teamed up in 2010, and then in 2015 or 2014 or so, they tried their first vintage, and they weren't thrilled with it, and they said, we're not releasing this as is because we're not proud of it. And then in 2015, they got closer. In 2016, they got, 2017, the Raguski Vineyard, and now the 2018, they've really honed in on what they're looking for. So very well rounded, loads of depth, good structure, but juice and all around. What do you think?
Yeah. I tell you what, if it's in the right spot for these wines tonight, I think we ended on a great note here. I hope everybody enjoyed this particular wine, but also too, going through the whole thing. Of course, we started off with the Stu Miller, then we went to the Santi, we went to the Chapelet,
Yep.
the Remote, the Malandiato, of course, the Kurt Vinge, Silencio, the Mariners Dry Creek, and then also this beautiful wine at the end. And
Caterwaul.
Caterwaul.
Caterwaul. Yep.
And yeah, and it's a great label on there too. And,
Yeah, great label, great wine all around.
Yeah.
Good depth. And the one thing I will say that I do actually get out of this is a little bit of a almost Ovaltine. Good minerality to it, good depth, and almost a little bit of dark chocolate or something.
I mean, I get the chocolate notes. I get the cherries. I get the blackberries.
Yeah.
I get the spice. I'm excited. I'm excited for all these wines, and I just think that it's a great lineup for this year. Dave, thank you
Cheers.
very much.
Yes, sir.
And I want to say, listen, on the Big Cab, Big Bag Sunday, let's have some fun and enjoy your wine, enjoy your friends. We love you. So, cheers.
Cheers, and thank you guys. Seriously, thank you so much for making this possible.